Hello everyone, welcome to another live on White David Gardening and Worm Farm. Today we're going to be discussing some of the problems that we face when we're growing tomato plants. However, we won't be discussing blight this week because that is reserved for next Monday's topic, because blight, well, there's a lot to discuss regarding blight, and we'll be discussing other problems as well. So please stay tuned for that next week. Do you grow tomatoes in your garden? And what are some of the issues that you face as you grow your tomatoes? Okay, so I have a few questions here that I'm going to be discussing regarding the challenges that we face with our tomato plants. And so the first question is, why do you need to thin your tomato? Why do you need to thin out your tomatoes if you grow them from seeds? Oh, hi, Sian. Hi, Han White. Right, so why do you need to thin out your tomatoes if you grow them from seeds? Well, for one thing, you need to thin out your tomatoes, your seedlings, because your tomatoes, when they're in cluster, they tend to grow spiny. They don't have enough room for each plant. I don't know. Okay. You don't have enough room for the plants to grow. And so for they're going to be struggling for whatever nutrients is in the soil. Not only that, but when you have your tomatoes in cluster, it tends to encourage the growth of, what would you call it now, fungus on your plant, on your tomatoes. So it is best to thin out your seedlings so that you can have proper airflow. Each seedling is going to have its own nutrients. And when you're thinning out your tomato seedlings, you need to pay attention to which ones look healthier, the larger ones, the stronger ones. Those are the ones that you're going to keep, and the ones that tend to be leggy or weaker, those are the ones that you're going to get out. So the next question, how soon can tomato be transplanted to a larger pot after you've started it as a seedling or from seed? It is recommended that you wait until your tomato has already grown its first set of true leaves. Usually when you plant any form of plants from seeds, the first two leaves that you see on your plant, these are not the true leaves. And why it says within 3 weeks. Okay. So the first two leaves that appear when you plant your seeds, those are not the true leaves. Those are going to fall off very quickly. They don't usually have the shape of what that plant is going to look like eventually. So these are not true leaves. The next set of leaves that grow after these two, usually these are your true leaves, and with time they will get the shape that the plant is supposed to have, or the leaf of the plant is supposed to have. So after your plants have grown the first set of true leaves, then you are able to transplant them, but you have to be careful because sometimes it grows true leaves and the plant is still pretty small. So it is best to wait for a little while after the plant have grown the first set of true leaves. Now, how can you strengthen your tomato seedlings? When you know that when you start seedlings indoors, they are not exposed to the external temperature, they're not exposed to the air outside, and so they tend to be a lot weaker. So to strengthen them, you need to either turn a fan on and let it run for 15 minutes each day. That will help to strengthen them. If the plants are outdoors, or if it is warm enough outdoors where you can put plants outside temporarily, you can put the plant outside in a semi-shaded area or semi-sunny area, and then the natural air that is outside will strengthen the plant. Now, how deep should you bury the stem of your tomato when you're transplanting? The tomatoes are tomato stem, wherever you have, I don't know, okay, wherever you have soil touching the stem of your plant, it will send root. So when you're transplanting your tomato, you want to bury as much of the stem as you can right up close to the lowest set of leaves. And the reason you're going to be putting it, allowing it, or burying it to the so close up to the lowest set of leaves is because this area that is buried is going to produce roots. All of that stem that is buried is going to produce roots. The more roots you have, the stronger your plant is going to be. And you know how the plants tend to suffer when it goes through a transplant. So you want to have as many roots as possible because this is going to help your plant to overcome the transfer shock, and it is also going to strengthen your plant. Well, that I do know. Okay. Okay. So next question. How can you improve your soil temperature before you transplant your tomatoes? Do you take any step to warm up your soil before you transplant? To warm up your soil, you can use black plastic or red plastic. Place it on top of your soil. You want to allow this to stay there for several weeks before you're ready to actually transplant your tomatoes, because tomatoes love heat. So okay, you don't. Okay, I'm right. Right, so black plastic or red plastic, these tend to trap heat. So you use those, you place it on your soil, on the top of your garden, and that will heat up the soil for you. And then a few weeks later, you can transplant them. I just transplant them. Yeah, okay. If the soil is too cold at the time when you transplant it, you can end up losing your tomato plant, or they can become stunted. So that is why if you want to transplant them earlier than your temperatures outdoors allow, then you cover it with the plastic to warm it up. I know there are others on this live that I cannot see you, but see your name because you're not commenting, but welcome to the live. Okay, so our next question is, why should you remove the lower set of leaves from your tomato plant, especially when the plant is close to 2 feet in height? The older your plant leaves are, I will do that next spring. Okay, and right. Yeah. Right. So the older your plant leaves are, the more likely they are, the more susceptible they are to to fungus and stuff like that. So the lowest leaves on the tomato plant, these are the oldest leaves, and because they're likely to develop more likely to develop fungus, then you should prune them off your tomato plant. And the reason these are more likely to develop fungus than the upper layers is because the upper layer of the plant is going to be blocking out some of the sunlight. It's going to reduce some of the airflow on the lower part of the plant. So you want to get rid of these lower leaves. Not only that, but because the lower leaves are so close to the ground, if there's any soil-borne pathogen there and you water, when you water the garden, that can splash up onto the leaves and that will cause fungus to start growing on your tomato, and it can eventually spread throughout the entire plant. So that is why it is important to prune off the lower leaves of your tomato plant. Have you ever experienced bottom end rot? Bottom end rot is caused by deficiency in your soil. There are two reasons why we have, okay, you've never experienced bottom end rot. There are two reasons why we have, why your tomato may have bottom end rot. Oh, hi, the everyday life of an OCD chick. How are you? Right, so there are two reasons why your plants suffer from bottom end rot. The first one is lack of calcium. So this is the main reason. The thing is, however, that you might have calcium in your soil. You might have calcium in your soil, but your plant is unable to absorb it. So if you have calcium in your soil and your plant is unable to absorb it, this could be because yeah, milk is a very good solution, the very quickest solution for bottom end rot. I use it a lot. Yeah, and if I have milk and my milk is going bad, whether I have bottom end rot, yes or no, I like to just put it around my tomato plant. So the other reason why you may have bottom end rot is water. If your tomato doesn't have enough water, then the plant is not able to absorb the calcium that is in the soil. So you have to have sufficient moisture for your tomato plant and you have to have sufficient calcium. So the two of them work together. Now, why should you water your tomato less when the fruit start to ripen? I didn't know that milk is good for a tomato plant. Yes, any form of calcium, any source of calcium is good for your tomato plant. And then because the milk, it breaks down easily and it is in a liquid state, so it is easier for the plants to actually absorb it more than if you had things like your crushed eggshell or your calcium carbonate, lime, or any other form of calcium. So the milk work pretty fast. So if you want a quick fix, the thing though is that bottom end rot cannot be fixed. Once the tomato develop bottom end rot, it will remain that way. But by adding the calcium and making sure that the soil has enough moisture, then okay, so by adding the milk, it will absorb it a whole lot faster. I forget what I was about to say. I was reading what the OCD chick says. Eggshell take longer to break down and absorb into the soil. Yes, it can take a very long time, which is why it's a good idea to crush your eggshell as fine as you can and put it in the soil, because then it will break down a lot faster and the plant will be able to get the nutrients from it. And if you boil your eggshell, that will make it break down a lot faster. And some of the calcium from that water that you use to boil your eggshell, you can put it around your tomato plant as well. It won't have a lot of calcium, but it will have some. Okay, so why should you water your tomato plants less when the fruits are ripening? When the fruit starts to ripen, the less water the plant has, and it doesn't mean you're to starve your plant because it still needs sufficient water for the plant to be able to produce nice, delicious fruits for you. But eggshell water, grape tip. Okay, thank you, OCD chick. Right, so when the tomato plant does not have a lot of water as it used to have before, it will actually concentrate the sugar that is in it, and so your tomatoes will end up being sweeter to prevent the fruit from splitting open. We are going to be discussing that point today as to why your tomatoes tend to split open. I water mine less at that time because I'm just lazy. Okay, Unwhite, I hear you. Okay. Okay, so what is the difference between a determinate and indeterminate tomato plant? Well, I was doing a good job then. Indeed, you were. So, what is the difference between determinate and indeterminate? Indeterminate tomatoes, they tend to grow bushy and they produce all their fruits within the same period of time. So, but the indeterminate, however, it takes longer to produce fruits, but it produces on a continuous basis. So it will put out one set of fruits now, a little later it put out another set of fruits, and it just keep on going. Your tomato plants can grow, the indeterminate plant can grow even up to 10 feet tall. So it is always producing. Oh, hi, West London Gardener. How is your evening going? Right, so the indeterminate produces the fruit on a continuous basis, whereas you're in bed. Okay, nice. I don't think I will get there for a while. I have a lot of work to do around the house when I'm finished here. Right, so that is the difference between the indeterminate and the determinate plant, tomato plant. It determines the growth and height of the plant. Okay, yes, true. Um, Determinate plants don't grow as tall as indeterminate. They tend to be shorter and bushier. And because of that, the way you go about pruning them can be a bit different from how you would prune the indeterminate, because when you're pruning indeterminate, usually you take off that little growth that occurs within the crotch of the tomato plant, and then you would leave the main stem, and that is what would be the fruits would be produced on. But with the determinate tomato, if you take off too much of those new growth that comes up in the crotch of the plant, then you're not going to have a lot of tomato plants. Oh, hi, microfarmer. Right, so that is why that is the difference between the determinate and the indeterminate tomato. Now, do you grow determinate or indeterminate tomato, or do you just plant any tomato? It doesn't really matter to you whether it is determinate or indeterminate. Now, can't wait for next spring. Have so many plans for the garden. both flowers and fruits and veg. Have purchased my tomato seeds ready to go. Yes, I don't know. This year I'm just so looking forward to next year. Every time it comes on to this time of year, I'm like, oh, when is the growing season gonna start already? And this year I have been doing far more than I would my previous years. Every year I keep on trying to find ways to improve my garden and to plant more stuff. So this year, for the first time, I bought my seeds pretty early. So I'm actually looking forward to it. Yes. So I was saying some of the advantages and disadvantages of the determinate and the indeterminate is I don't I plant what I want and like. Okay. The advantage of planting the determinate tomato is that one, it produces a lot quicker than the indeterminate, and two, it finish you can harvest it a whole lot faster. So when your growing season is up, you won't really have a lot of tomatoes there that didn't really make it unless you plant it late. The disadvantage of it, however, is that it tends to take up more space in your garden because it likes to spread itself out. The indeterminate, because it tends to grow upward, then it takes less space in your garden. So that is the advantage. The disadvantage is that it takes a little longer to start producing fruits. And the advantage of the indeterminate also is that you don't have all of your fruits ready for harvesting within the same period of time. It happens gradually, so you don't end up with a lot of food getting spoiled or a lot of your tomato going bad. I'd much rather be the one to determine the height of my tomato. Okay. My tomatoes grow really tall. Okay. Yeah. So if you want to control the height of your tomato, you can always cut it. Why are you here, son? Go and stay with Hannah. I'll be there shortly. Go and stay with Hannah. What do you need? Okay, you can stay with Hannah. Whatever you want, ask Hannah. Bye bye. And close the door behind you. Yeah, when you go, close the door behind you. No, open it and go, and then close it behind you. Sorry about that. Oh, your auntie says hi. Your auntie says hi. Let's see, where was I? Um, I don't know. Do you all use string hookup? Well, I use strings on my tomato in addition to the trellis that I have. Sometimes I trellis it on string if I'm doing the indeterminate, and sometimes I will use other form of trellis. Can you two please close that door? Thank you. No, it's up to me. Anthony, behave yourself and go. Oh, the two of you, your dinner is on on the counter. Go and eat. Sorry about that. What's a string hook? What's a string hook up? Microfarmer. Only string. Okay. Kids want their moment of fame. Yes, they definitely loved their moment of fame, but I don't think they should be on camera. There's no reason for them to be. They want to take photo, they can take photo, but This is something that is exposed to the entire world. So yeah, I like to keep my life and my family private. Right, so let's see. Where was I? Right, so how can you encourage your indeterminate tomato? Yeah, true. Same here. Okay. Microfarmer says, hold it where you wrap a string around the plant and use with a tall pole. Yes, that is how I use it as well. Okay, yes. So how can you help your indeterminate to produce faster? Well, for the main stem of your tomato plants, you want to just pinch off the tip of it. And I don't know what reaction take place in the plant, but that encourages the plant to actually start focusing on flowering earlier than it would normally and then produce fruits. I'm not sure what the science is behind that, but it works. And the next question is, what happens if your tomato has too much nitrogen, your tomato plant? When you do that, please show me how. Okay, okay, will do. We'll do microfarmer. Right. So what happens if your tomato plant has too much nitrogen, too much leaves, no fruits? Right on. Yes. So you know that when your plant is close to that time when it will start to produce your fruits, then it is important to keep pruning so that you you won't have too many leaves. And once you have too much nitrogen, naturally you're going to increase the foliage of your plant. Yes, so no fruit is the result. Or you may have fruits, but because now the plant has to be sharing the nutrients between the foliage and between the fruits, then your fruits tend to be smaller. And if they're not smaller, they are not as tasty as they should be. So too much nitrogen is not necessarily good. So when your plant is close to that time when it's going to produce fruits, then you want to reduce the amount of nitrogen that you feed the plant. How do you lower the nitrogen in your garden beds? Nitrogen is water soluble. So if you want to lower the nitrogen, just run a lot of water through your garden, and that will help to reduce the nitrogen. Or you might just have to allow the nitrogen to stay there until it dissipates on its own. You're welcome. Okay, so why do tomatoes split? This is a very interesting one. So there are several reasons why your tomato might split. And just to make sure that I don't miss any of the points that I have here, I'm going to be reading them. So irregular watering can cause your tomato to split. I have no idea. Okay. Right. So irregular watering can cause your tomato to split. So sometimes, for whatever reason, you may not get to water your tomato on your regular schedule. And so a lot excuse me, a lot of us tend to decide that, okay, I'm going to give it an extra boost of water. So you give it more than you would normally give it because too much time have passed before you give it water. What this does, it will cause the pulp to hold on to the water and it will swell. And as it swells, this pulp is going to swell faster than the outside of your tomato can actually stretch. And that is going to result in the tomato splitting. Hello, her healthy home. How is your evening? Too much moisture. Yes. Yes, OCD chick. Too much moisture. So that is one. Too much moisture and then over. So at this point in time, some might feel that your tomato is not edible. It is edible, but you want to use it as quickly as possible because it is more likely to develop mold, and you don't want that. So once your tomato split, you use it as quickly as possible. Okay. Okay, so those are the points as to why your tomato split. So the next question is, why does my tomato not ripen fully? Have you ever experienced where you either grow your own tomato or you buy tomato and then you notice that when you close to the section of where the stem was, close to the section where the stem was, the tomato tend to be yellowish or green. And when you cut into your tomato, you might see it a bit, some of it ripe and some of it is green. So we're going to be discussing why that happened. And it happens, there are two names that are given. One is called green shoulder and the other is called yellow shoulder. So we're going to be discussing these 2 points. Now let's see. Microfarmer says, why do gardeners like to grow so much tomatoes? Well, tomato is so universal. You can use it in juice, you can use it in your salads, you can use it in your stews, you can just eat it as it is, you can use it in sandwich. So pretty much having a lot of tomato is pretty good. And then there are so many different varieties that offer so many different taste and texture and stuff like that. So I guess that's why gardeners love to grow tomato. And tomato is said to have almost all the nutrients that your body needs. I don't know how true it is, but a research that I did on tomato, that's what I found. So I don't know how true it is, but for them to say that, then it would indicate that it is some form of a superfood, eh? Let's see. I don't like to spell check. Okay. No worries. I know exactly what you're saying. I'm eating that split tomato. Shoot. Uh, okay. I'm guilty of that, microfarmer. I guess we are all guilty of that, eh? Tomatoes taste so good. We like them for salsa, salad, and sauce. Most sauce recipes calls for 40 pounds, so we do a lot. Whoa, really? That's a lot. You must be making a lot of sauce. They're easy to grow. Yes. I guess that point and white is one of the reasons why a lot of people will start off. Most gardeners, when they're starting off, tomato is going to be the first thing that they start off with because they're easy to grow. They don't require much, really. Is that too much acid in your body? Well, it depends on how much you eat. There is always a limit to everything that we do. So we just have to make sure that we control just how much we eat if you want to control the acidity of your tomatoes. Let's see. Not all tomatoes are high in acid. That is also true. They're easy to grow. I agree. Okay. So tomatoes are superfruits. It would appear so, because if what the research that I did on tomatoes a few years ago is true, then it says that most of the nutrients that our body needs, they are found in tomatoes. So if that is true, then naturally it would be a superfood. That a small child eat that much tomato? I'm not sure I understand that one, like a farmer. Okay, so let's see, where was I? Yes, we were. Tomatoes are often eaten with alkaline ingredients like lime. Oh, I've never had tomato with anything that relates to lime. That's interesting. They aren't very high acid, which is why they need added acidity to can. Okay, okay, that makes sense. Tomatoes and peppers are super easy to grow. Well, I won't say anything about the peppers, but tomatoes are easy to grow to me. But well, I don't know. Peppers love heat, and where I am, the heat is nice for 3 months. Peppers usually require more time than that to actually produce anything. So even though we have warm, it can be, I've seen it go up to maybe 37 here Celsius. But peppers, I don't know, for whatever reason, the temperature here fluctuates so much between hot and cold that peppers don't really do all that well. Not always. And some people around me tend to grow peppers and seem to be okay with it, but I don't know. Maybe I'm planting my peppers too late. I don't know. Not that I've tried much except in the last couple of years, but I don't find peppers very easy to grow here, which is why I have to take drastic measures to grow my peppers. I don't really try to grow sweet peppers much, but I like to grow hot peppers. The sad thing is that I have 3 to 4 months of growing season. The hotter your pepper, the more time it requires to grow. So if hot pepper is going to require 6 months to grow, and that is what I'm interested in growing in, then they don't really grow so easy for me because they only have 4 months of growing season. 40 pounds of tomato. Yes, peppers too. I agree, Nikki. Yeah. Well, hopefully this year I'll be able to say peppers are easy to grow too. So I got some Scotch bonnet seeds from a friend, and I sowed a few of the seeds just to test to see if it will grow. So I have about 4 seedlings there growing at the moment. I'm going to see how well they grow inside under my grow light, and to see if I can keep them through until the growing season so that at least I'll be able to harvest some. But we'll see how that goes. I'm planting a boatload of tomato this year. Okay. I'm going to be planting a lot more varieties of tomatoes this year because I got some varieties of seeds from Unwhite that I'm not familiar with in terms of growing them. So now I have to find some space to put more tomato plants. 40 pounds make less than a dozen quarts. Oh, they aren't eaten all at once. Less than a dozen quarts. Let's see. Oh, it makes jar for storage. Okay, I thought it was for a meal. Oh, I don't think she'd be able to walk if she used 40 pounds of tomatoes for a meal. She'd be so stuffed. I planted about 30 tomato plants this year. Wow, that's a lot. I don't really know how much tomato I plant. I usually just keep planting tomatoes just in case something goes wrong with some. And if I have the space for it, And sometimes I find tomatoes that I didn't plant just decide to grow, and then I would try to find some space to put it so that it can continue growing. I don't really know how much tomato I plant each year. You gave and got a lot of pepper seeds in the mail call. Oh yes, I did get a lot of pepper seeds from her. And I had a friend who visited from Toronto and she brought me some Scotch bonnet peppers, and so I just saved some of the seeds. So I'm hoping that the pepper was mature enough that I'll be able to have a good healthy plant from it. Let's see. 30 plants. I hope they do well. Okay. I've never had a problem with pepper. That's good. That's very good. I'm jealous. No, I gave White Davy a lot of pepper seeds. I always get you guys confused. Yes. Diva Jones is sending me some tomato seeds and she said to give she said can give 20 pounds per plant. That's nice. I hope they do well. I definitely hope they do well for you indeed. I might have that problem next season because the chipmunks that eat some of the tomatoes and some seeds I think some seeds into the soil. So you're having a problem with chipmunks, eh? Thankfully, they don't tend to go much in the residential areas here, so I don't have to worry about them too much. The only thing I have to worry about running around here are the rabbits, and it is only this year that I've actually seen them in my garden. Usually they just run around on your lawn, but that's as far as it goes. But this year they were actually eating down my garden. See, yes, they do well. Okay, I always overplant my seedlings. Oh, hi, getting clean on the prairies. I always overplant my seedlings, give away lots to friends and neighbors. Um, well, I don't really know of anyone who wants seedlings. I don't know a lot of gardeners around me, so I don't have anybody to give when I have extra seedlings. Unless maybe I go online and offer to give it up, then I might have takers for them. But I usually plant more seedlings than I need because sometimes so many different little things can go wrong and then you end up without any seedlings at all. And to start from scratch with our short growing season, it can be detrimental. You might not end up harvesting anything. Oh, hi, flavors and textures. Okay, they went into the soil. Okay. When the chipmunks are eating your seed, you're saying, eating your tomato, you're saying some of the seeds went into the soil, so you have tomatoes popping up. Okay. I don't know what the story is with my garden, why tomatoes pop up. I don't know if maybe after harvesting and the tomatoes that I would leave behind saying that they're not mature, maybe the seeds stay there and germinate. I don't know. Maybe birds are dropping the seeds, but I don't have chipmunks either, or at least I haven't seen them. Squirrels don't bother my tomato either. Yeah, that's very fortunate. They eat my strawberries, apples before they could grow. Yeah, you might have to find some way to get them out. Okay, so let's see the next question. Oh yes, we were going to look at green shoulder and yellow shoulder in your tomatoes. And the green shoulder is when the stem of your tomato, both green shoulder and yellow shoulder, tend to have similar appearance. It is when the stem or close to the stem of your tomato tend to be either greenish or yellowish when your tomato is ripening. And this is different from when your tomato is ripening but is not fully ripe yet. With this green shoulder or yellow shoulder, it occurs when the tomato just won't ripen fully no matter how long you wait. That's when you know that it is either green or yellow shoulder. Now, the green shoulder occurs when the temperature is too high on your tomato plants, or if the hot, like over 75 degrees or degrees Fahrenheit, or it is exposed to the sun for too long, then the green shoulder occur. Let's see. I have some old CDs. I'm going to hang them in from the trees and around my strawberry plants. Okay, yeah, I've heard a few people really have a need to use that. Chipmunks got to my melons and cucumbers. Didn't bother my tomato. Okay. The problem I have in my garden as biggest as large pets are mice. They tend to go in my garden this year. This is the only time I've ever had problem with them. Just when it was starting to cool off, they went into my garden and they ate my cucumbers. But beyond that, I've never really had a problem with large pests. Chipmunks, okay, read that already. My problem is not the tomatoes, it is the bugs. Okay. Yeah, I had it hard. I had it really bad with the bugs this year. Okay, so we looked at green shoulder. And now we're going to talk about yellow shoulder. Now, yellow shoulder, which looks pretty much the same like green shoulder, this occurs when the plant does not produce enough lycopene, and the lycopene is what encourage the plant to grow antioxidant properties, and it gives the fruit its color. So if the plant does not produce enough lycopene, then you will end up with yellow shoulder. Right, and just like it is with green shoulder, yellow shoulder occurs when the temperature is too high for the plant to actually produce the lycopene. Now with the green shoulder, this is when usually the chlorophyll in your plant, in your tomato, has to break down for your tomato to ripen properly. So when the time is too hot, the chlorophyll either don't break down or it don't break down fast enough, and so you will end up with that green section in your tomato. No matter how long you keep it, it just won't ripen. Okay, so then the next question: can yellow or green shoulder be corrected? No. Once your tomatoes develop yellow or green shoulder, it cannot be corrected. So those tomatoes have already gone bad, but you can prevent the rest of your tomatoes from going bad, from developing yellow or green shoulder. And this you can do by either moving your tomatoes, if you can, to a shaded area, or providing shade for your tomatoes. So you might have to get shade cloth or some other means of providing shade for your tomatoes, and that will help to control green and yellow shoulder. Okay, so the last question for today is, what variety of tomatoes are less likely to develop green and yellow shoulder? Heirloom tomatoes are less likely to develop yellow and green shoulder than the hybrid. Oh, the hybrid tomato is less likely to develop the green or yellow shoulder than the heirloom. I don't know what the reason is, but the hybrid do better where yellow and green shoulder is concerned. Okay, so next week we are going to be discussing some of the problems that tomato plants face, further problems apart from what we just discussed, and we're going to be focusing mostly on blight, and there are two different types of blights. So we're going to be discussing that and other problems that the tomato plants face. So and we're going to look at how we can treat those problems that can be treated. So if you don't have any more questions, we have come to the end of this live. I'm thankful for all of you that were here. I hope you were able to benefit from the live. And that is it. We're at the end of our lives. Thank you all for joining me. So don't forget to join me on Friday at 11 a.m. and I will be discussing another worm farm Q&A. Okay, Russell. I didn't know you were here. Right, so we're going to be discussing another worm farming Q&A on Friday at 11 a.m. So you can join me if you are able to do so. Let's see. Nice. Thanks for all the information. Blessings, everyone. Great live, my love. Thank you. Thank you. I really enjoyed this question and answer session. Do more of this. Okay. Yes, I will be doing a lot more of this as time goes by. It's going to be a regular feature of my channel every Monday at 5 p.m. Have a great day, everyone. Oh, hi, Helpy. Oh, I'm sorry you missed out. But yes, I'm glad you were able to join. At least I get to say hi to you today. Good night, everyone. Nice chatting with everyone. Thanks, Marsha. You're welcome there. Okay, so thank you all. Have a good night. And I will see you on Friday. I'm just gonna allow the video to run a little bit so that if there's anyone new here and you want to subscribe to them, you can check each other out. So I'll just allow it to run for another minute. Yes, indeed, it's nice to see your smiling face and send well wishes. Hopefully, I'll catch you next time. Okay, my dear, you take care. Okay, so this is it. I'm signing out now. Have a good night, everyone.